Alright, let's continue with our modeling. Now, we need to kind of clean up this bit of the fender we've created, because naturally it's all lumpy, it's looking a bit nasty in a couple of areas. What I'm going to do to clean this is a couple of things. First off, we'll start off here in the side view, and I just want to line up some of these vertices, get the topology looking a little bit cleaner than it does now. Let's see, maybe we'll bring this down just a tad. And for the time being, I'm only worried about this in this side-to-side direction here in the side view. Sort of the latitudinal direction, I guess you could say. And it doesn't need to be dead on. It doesn't need to be like, you know, a perfect grid or anything. Just straighten things up a little bit. Let's see, we'll pull this over, pull this down, and down, and down. It's looking a bit better already, and now let's kind of worry about the longitudinal lines just a little. Alright. So we'll say that works for the time being. Now the next thing I want to do is get rid of all of this lumpiness we have here in the X direction. Fortunately, there's a real nice way we can do that. Let's go ahead and go to Edit Polygons, and let's grab the Sculpt Geometry tool. Let's go over to our tool settings, and check this out. We have a reference vector, so we'll set this over to X, which means we're only going to be moving these vertices in X. Notice we're set to smooth, opacity is low, max displacement is low. And as I draw, I'm only moving these in a side-to-side manner. And you'll notice real quickly that it's just taking out a lot of that lumpiness. Now don't do this too much, because you'll end up with a perfectly flat surface. But if you just make a few strokes, it's going to kill out the bulk of that nasty lumpiness that we've been fighting. And if you play with it for just a minute, you'll probably end up with a nice sweep that goes right back to your wheel well, which is what we were looking for in the first place. But take just a second, again, sight down your vertices. It's very important the further you get into your model. See if anybody's kind of sticking further out than anybody else. You can check these in the top view as well. Looks like we have a relatively nice sweep going on here. Then, of course, just look at your shaded view for a moment. Not looking half bad. And remember, this is a low res. So when we switch over to high res, I'm sure things might change a little bit, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. For now, let's go ahead and move up the side of the car. Actually, tell you what, instead of moving up, let's get this little area down here licked and taken care of. What we're going to do is kind of a trick, if you will, kind of hidden from the audience. We're just going to grab these three edges and extrude them down. Yeah, it's going to make, if you were to look at it from this side, a bit of a difference in the shape of our object, but that's just fine. Totally acceptable, because it's all going to be hidden back here behind the air intake anyways. So let's go ahead and extrude edge, and we'll pull down. Now if we look here at the underside of the door, we have just two little edges. So let's pull this all the way down to the door for now, and then we'll grab vertices. I'll snap this down here to the base of the door. I don't really have anything here that to snap to, and really no reason to snap, so I will curve snap. What I meant was I don't have like a solid vertex to snap to, but I can snap to these polygonal edges and get everything nicely and neatly lined up. And this last vertex, we'll just curve snap right back here so it's pretty much out of sight. And you'll notice we have that nice change in direction, but we need a little more curvature, like what we have here in the door. So let's go to Object Mode and grab that Split Edge Ring tool and just drop a quick split like so. Let me do this. Let me set this over to Relative, see if that lines this up a little better. It might not. Hard to say. Let's say hit Y. There we go. Yeah, it lines it up a little bit better because it's going halfway down each individual edge. And we can probably start off by grabbing that whole edge and pushing it back just to get us started. And we have to kind of bleed that off as we get back here toward the rear of this, but that's okay. We'll get there. One thing at a time. Let's go to wireframe view, and I'll just snap this right here to this polygon edge. This vertex, as we get back here toward the back, I'll bleed this change in direction off a little bit so we don't have quite as much pinching in. And let's go back to our Lamborghini. Now this is sort of a constant curve from this crease all the way down, so we may need a little bit of tweaking to make sure that this curvature remains constant, because what it looks like right now, if you kind of interpret this with me, we arc down, and now we leave this at almost a straight downward angle, but then we pinch back in again, so we get sort of a, almost like the inside of a bat wing, Murcielago, sort of shape, and we don't want that. We want this to be one nice constant bit of curvature. So we have a little bit of tweaking ahead of us. I'd like to think that, well, you can't really say that either one of these is absolutely correct. We're probably going to have to grab the uppermost along the whole length and push that in just a little bit. Let's go over to a shaded view for just a moment. We don't have a lot of light to work with here because of the way the default light works. Don't be afraid from time to time when this happens to create a point light just for the sake of getting an idea of what's going on. We'll hit 7 on the keyboard, and we'll just bring this over to light the area we're looking at. Also, let's go to shading. We'll switch wireframe on shaded. And so now the area is lit, and we get kind of an idea. Now here, the curvature is not half bad, a little bit off maybe, but probably not so much that the audience is going to, gasp and freak out. As we get back here toward the back, we lose that continuity of the indentation, so we are going to have to work with that. I'm going to go ahead and delete out this light. We'll hit 6. I guess I'll leave wireframe on shaded on, tentatively speaking, until I get tired of it and turn it off, which could be at any moment. Let me grab all of these objects together. We'll go over to component mode, and that means I can grab vertices on all of them all at once. And what we'll do is I'll just start off by grabbing all of these vertices here along the base of these objects, maybe all the way back to here. And we'll just push these in slightly. Now I'm paying more attention to what's going on back here than anywhere else. A lot of this I'll just have to tweak out kind of by hand, so just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and go to wireframe for just a moment. Now that generally fixed a few things, but it also messed a few things up, so we are going to have to go in and fix some of what we just did. But now if you look, this curvature is a lot more continuous, which is exactly what I was hoping for. That's a very good sign. These are all still stuck together, which is good. Can maybe curve snap this over here, clean that up a little bit. Curve snap this over to this polygonal edge, like so. And then really, more or less, we just walk down the surface and make sure everything is still curve snapped to its corresponding edge. Grab this, we can curve snap it up a little bit. We can point snap this because we have a vertex to actually look at. Now let's take just a quick second and examine that. Looks like we have a subtle change in direction we could probably solve with a little bit of pushing. And we'll curve snap this to that edge. Clean up that topology just a little bit over there while we're looking at it. Could probably get away with point snapping that. Go ahead and line those up. And we'll just curve snap this over like so. And then bleed off that change in direction up the door just a tad. Okay, so let's hit 5, F8, switch off wireframe on shaded. Now, we haven't yet creased that door at all, so there's still some work to do on it, but overall, I think that's lining up pretty well. So that takes care of that, and it gives us a crevice here that we can work with a little bit later. One of the things we may want to do, and because we're not done with the fender yet, I won't worry about it, we'll probably want to end up creating a bevel that runs down that crease, and we may want to do the same thing all along the door here so that we can have that nice change in direction without having to crease that edge and worry about adding too much detail to our final smooth model. But we have some nice swooping curvature moving in, maybe a little bit of tweaking down the road, but for the time being I think it's looking just fine. So to continue and to keep on constructing, let's go ahead and show our NURBS curves again. There are still a nice guideline into what we're doing. Now we have this line, this sort of ridge that runs down the top of the door, and we ended this ridge right here. You'll notice the curve kind of stops there. But that ridge in the car actually continues all the way back underneath this wing, which we can kind of see here. I'm sure if we kind of start shopping through our images, there you go, that's actually not bad. We flatten out here on top, and that ridge kind of walks around back up there. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Not too bad, really. Let's go ahead and start building up to that. What I'm going to do is let's grab all of... so let's go one back. I'm just going to grab all of these edges back to here. And let's extrude these. I'll pull them up in Y world, push them over in X world. So you'll notice I'm just kind of continuing that plane that we have created thus far. And then it's just going to be a matter of snapping and tweaking like we've been doing. Now remember, a lot of these vertices are nearly planar to one another as far as the side of the door goes. So we're going to build this fender with as few shapes as possible for the time being, and then we'll add more only as we need them. Now, let me take a look at it. You'll notice it's a little bit apparent here if you've already been staring at the car for quite a while, but let's see if I can find a good picture of what I'd like to demonstrate real quick. Yeah, I do love that convertible. Here we go. So you can see this ridge kind of swoops outward just a little bit, and then the creasing of it actually makes it all the way around the back of the car. There's also some subtle creasing here, so, sort of pinching into the back, so we'll need to remember that. So this edge is actually going to walk itself all the way and plug in right back here. So what I'd like to do real quick, just to make my life easier for down the road, is let's create a curve to kind of demonstrate that curvature. We'll create another part of our NURBS curve cage, if you will. Let's go to Show. I'm going to switch off polygons, and we'll just leave the NURBS in place, or the NURBS curves. And let's go to Create. I'll get the CV curve tool. We'll go here into the top view. And all we got to do is find out where that ended. So I'll just curve snap my first point here in perspective, and now we can see that. And this curve shows in the drawing to end up under the wing. We know from the photo it doesn't really do that. It continues from the door around the side of the wing and straight back here to the back where it's going to plug in. So we'll follow that instead. And we'll gently wrap this around. And here's where our brake lights kind of come into play. Right back here, so tweak that, and there we go. So a nice general representation of this curvature. A little bit of tweaking to be done because the elevation doesn't change, of course. So we'll need to pull this up, because this gets right about level with the wing once we get up here. A nearly flat surface. And back here we're going to arc back down toward the back of the car. So this should really help us out as we continue to build up the pieces for the back of the car. Now let's go back to Show. We'll bring our polygons back online, so to speak. And now we have something to snap these vertices to. Nice physical guide to keep on constructing. And this is the very essence of this modeling method because, really, to create this curvature, we moved, 5 or 6 CVs, and that was the end of it. And here we've already got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 polygon vertices that are going to be positionally dictated by that curve. So we saved ourselves a lot of hassle and effort just by putting that into position. And really, with that done, we could probably go ahead and grab these edges as well. And I'm going to do something, kind of adjust tactics. Let's grab our split edge ring tool, and I'll make 2 splits down this surface. Now, these are going to serve a couple of purposes. The first one, naturally, is to allow for a very subtle bit of curvature that'll flow a little more cleanly with what's going on with the door. So we'll point snap there, and I'll point snap there. Now let's come here into the side view and just make sure that that's kind of lining up neatly. Let's frame up on this in perspective. And then we can sight down this, of course, like we've been doing. And let me try this. Let me grab this row of faces down the middle. I'll control-click on the Z-axis, so we're only moving in XY, and real softly tug this out for just the slightest amount of curvature, and then I'll just snap these back in place. Control-click on the yellow box, snap, snap. If you're wondering, the only reason I control-clicked on that yellow box is, 1, to reset my tool, and also if you leave the tool set like that and you try to move a vertex out of the way, you get it kind of over here out the corner of your viewport, you'll find that you probably moved it quite far. So I typically don't leave my tool there unless I know I'm going to be doing a lot of motions in that direction. Okay. Now, this flat plane that we are creating is going to start to end, if you will, right back here toward the wheel well, where it starts to become a more rounded surface. And the shading here almost makes it look like it's there's a little bit of, denting in the curvature, which there probably isn't, but just food for thought. So we need to keep this relatively flat until we make it all the way back to about here. So let's grab, actually I don't want curve points, I want edges. We'll grab these edges all the way back to here. And let's extrude. Go into world mode, and notice I've control-clicked on Z, so we'll pull all these up and get them sort of in line with what we've got going on. Now, we have sort of an interesting area here, because if we just follow our curvature up to this point, we're going to get some pinching at this point that we don't want, because this, if we follow all these as one, you'll notice this edge is sunken in a little bit lower, so we have to be just a little bit careful with this. Maybe pull this back down, and we'll build up more slowly. I guess you could say a bit more carefully. And we'll pull this away. Let me point snap this into place. It's not bad, and now we can pull this out here to be planar with the rest of his buddies. We may need to tug some of these out again. I know we pushed them all back with that lattice, but we may need to pull them back out to create a little more of a stark contrast between the flat area back here at the wheel well and what's going on at the rest of the fender, but that's okay. Some things we learn as we go. Let's have a look here. I think I'm going to have to make an interesting change in topology at this point, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. For now, let me go ahead and continue what I was doing. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'm afraid there might be a little bit of pinching right here that I don't want to happen. But we'll see. We'll go slowly. And let me create one more extrusion, and then we'll tweak this out. Get everything looking nice. let's get this one as well, and then we'll merge all three at once. 6 become 3. Remember to watch that poly count whenever you're merging. Okay. Now, did we ever smooth proxy this? I don't think we did. We do need to delete its history because it's got vast amounts of it. We'll go ahead and hit Control tilde and then tap the tilde key. Let's select it and go to Materials and assign Blend 1 to it. And we can already kind of see maybe a little bit of pinching taking place here. I'm not quite sure how apparent it is. May not be all that bad at all right now. But I'll keep that area in mind. Overall, it's not looking half bad for just getting a surface started out. We got an edge already leading up here to where the wing is. That's going to be really good for us to help us create that cutout. But for now, let's continue building back in this direction. Come over here back to the side view. And we have, notice we have a bit of a crease that's going to, it looks like it's going to flow back here. I believe we can see that here as well. So you'll see it kind of fold in. Take a picture of the tail lights. Yeah, it's sort of, it stays pretty much rounded out back here toward the taillights. Maybe just a subtle, very subtle bit of creasing there at the corner. But this image we were looking at before, you really catch that highlight. So that's a great shot for helping us really get the shape of this car. Let's go ahead and start by grabbing edges, and we'll just grab these 3 edges at first. And let's extrude these. I'll pull them up just a little bit. Let's go back over here to perspective, and I'll push them in. Now remember, right about back here is where we start losing the quote-unquote planarity of this piece that we still have to tweak out a little bit, but it's going to start rounding back toward the back of the car. Just remember that I told you that for later on. Make sure I control-click on Z, and we'll just pull this up, hit G, go back to world space, pull this up, and now let's tweak some of these verts out. Of course, these 3, let me control-click on my tool, we'll just snap together. Notice we have 6, shift, right mouse, merge vertices, merge, boom, become 3, that's good. And these upper vertices will snap up here to their curve, like they should be. We're already starting to get a little bit of curvature taking place here. It's sloping off a bit more than I'd like it to, though. And let's change directions a little bit. I'll grab these 3 edges. And I don't want to hit G. I actually want to come back and grab extrude edge again. Let's start pulling these straight back. Now we shouldn't need a tremendous amount of detail to get to the back. However, we also don't want to make things very difficult for ourselves later because we want to keep this quadrangulated. So what I'll do is we'll have a change in direction edge. So this will come out as kind of a 45. We'll continue in this direction, kind of swooping down. This will become a quad. So we're going to kind of take off in 2 directions here. You'll see what I'm talking about as we progress, if you haven't picked up already. Maybe not that. I want edges. I love that when you grab the wrong object. Let's extrude this edge. We'll pull this out a little bit. Let's grab these 2 vertices, and I'll just merge them to center so they become 1. And now it should start to become a little more apparent what I'm shooting for here. Now this, I would like to become our edge, if you will. So we're going to have to start adjusting the detail that we've created so far to make way for that. I need to pull this up just a little bit. And we'll slide these back. They don't need to be quite so far along. And let's see, let's grab this edge, Oh, didn't mean to merge it. It's not what I wanted to do at all, actually. Let's extrude this edge, pull this out. We'll grab these two vertices, and we'll merge those to center so they become one. And now we should be able to grab all of these edges all at once, extrude them back in world space, and start to kind of straighten them out. Now notice I'm not too stressed at the moment about the actual shape these are forming. We'll get to that. I just want to make sure that things are looking clean in this primary view, and then I'll go through and kind of tweak everything. Maybe pull this up, clean a little bit here, pull this down. We can curve snap this, because we've actually got a curve here to work with. And see, all we got to do now is transform this shape into this shape by the time we get back here, and we're good to go. So I'm thinking 2, maybe 3 more extrusions will take care of that for us. So pull this out. Curve snap. Pull this along. It's going to, you can see it already, it's going to need a lot of tweaking because it's kind of crumpled in. Alright, and I guess we'll do 2 more extrusions from here. Lots of tweaking to do. And this is one of those areas, you know, I know I've said before, create a little bit of detail and then tweak that little bit of detail. In this case, I'm going to feel a lot better having all of these vertices in here so I can start thinking about the shape of the car back here in the back as a whole, as one entire piece, and I don't have to start contemplating what it's going to look like when I get the rest of the detail in, because all of the detail will already be there. And 1 more extrusion back, and we'll just start snapping each of these into place along this curve. Okay, so it's dented all to heck and back, but the general idea of what we're trying to create is now in place. The surface is there, it just needs to be cleaned up a bit. So lots of cleaning to do. Kind of get a start on it. We can just kind of sight down the thing and start pulling. It looks like we have a lot of history we could clear up if we were so inclined. So let's delete by type, history. Can hit the tilde key, and I mean, you know, it's rough, but we're coming along very well overall. Let me grab vertices, let's get our move tool, and oh, I just minimized that, so I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Let's go ahead and bring Maya back up. And I know a couple of you guys are wincing right now because you just saw that Agents trailer. That's okay. Now let's go ahead and start cleaning using normal mode. Start to kind of round things out a little bit. Looks like we might have a bit of a dent here. Hard to say. Of course, we can jump back and forth and use that specular highlight to really help us out. Wouldn't mind in the end seeing a little more creasing around here, but that's just food for thought while we work. Do play with this normal mode, though, because this will really help you out as you start to have to reshape your objects. Starting to get some nice flow going on as we move here toward the back. Looks like this will need to be brought way in. I think that'll be a good start on tweaking out. Clearly, we have a lot of work to do, and we still have a lot more surface to create. But the bulk of the fender is pretty much behind us now. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here, and we will move on in the next video. So thanks a lot.